to the Cast Off. This is the #1 recasting show on the internet where two contestants recast your favorite shows with actors that you love. Tonight, I'm your host, Craig Price. Tonight, we have got two people who have absolutely nothing to plug, which is crazy. But we're going to look out for falling objects as we recast Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. Our competitors today are, as always, our favorite and our own Elisabeth Rappe, who usually judges, and live from his phone from an undisclosed location, her friend Paul Hitchcock. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Hey.
All right, we'll start with Elisabeth. Elisabeth, what has been going on with you? Thank you for being on the Cast Off, but also thank you so much for co-hosting and coming on the main podcast so much. We really enjoy having you on.
Well, I enjoy being on. It's the only time that I get to not talk about anal glands and toenail trim.
Oh, anal glands. Thank you for going right for the anal glands. That's great. We call that butt juice at our house. It's like
that's what we call it, butt stink.
Yeah, because you'd be like, wait a minute, I think I smell butt juice. We only had that problem with our first dog, Otto. He had every problem. But yeah, so thank you for classing up the show as you always do. Because you've done that, I have to go to Paul now because it's gone into some disgusting territory. So Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself. We've never met before. How do you know the lovely Elisabeth, and what do you do for what do you love movies? How are things going? Who the hell are you?
I've known Beth for a long time, or Elisabeth for a long time. And yeah, I mean, things are going well, just, man, it sounds so boring. And boring. But yeah, it's going all right. Just not really trying to do anything. Yeah, things are good.
So are you a Coloradan?
I am. Yeah, I'm native.
Okay. So this is a full-on Colorado show. Is that am I saying it right?
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have an accent? Because I have the horrible Rocky Mountain accent.
Because if you say Colorado, they get mad. But if they Colorado,
I don't.
It's like Nevada.
Yeah.
But if I decide I want to honor my the people back east, I say Colorado. But
All right. Well, we do have a game to play, and there are some rules with that. So this is your first time on, so I'll make sure you pay attention, Paul, because we've got. I'm going to name an actor. It's pretty simple. It'll be a character from the movie. You'll give me the name of an actor, and it can be any actor throughout space and time. And then the best choice decided by our judges, who oddly enough is not Elisabeth Rappe, who usually is. Usually is Elisabeth is one of our main judges, but whoever gets the best choice gets 1 point. I also play along, and if you happen to get my secret selection, it's a good way to get an additional point. Or if someone else oddly enough got the best choice, but mine was not chosen, that's a way to get a point and start scraping back, especially if you start falling behind. The person with the most points wins, and if there's a tie, it's a double feature to win. Well, we continue our month of May fun summer with Deadpool, and this week we have our guest Liz Cerna coming on. So head over to matineeheroes.com/subscribe to follow the podcast. And you can also hear tonight's post show exclusively on the audio version of Cast Off every Thursday in the Matinee Heroes feed. And while you're at the site, if you do enjoy the Cast Off, please head over to matineeheroes.com/castoff, where you can subscribe to the video feed, and you can link up to our YouTube channel and subscribe there as well. We are going to quietly judge our contestants tonight as we recast Magnolia, and we're going to start off with Tom Cruise. That's right, Tom Cruise playing T.J. Mackey, I guess he would be a proto men's right advocate, incel celebrity, motivational speaker, but this was 1999, so it was right before all that happened. So, Elisabeth, I know you said you hated this movie, and there's a lot about this really good movie to hate. I love this movie. My wife absolutely adores this movie, and Amy Mann, who sings most of the music. What don't you like about this movie, and who do you have as Tom Cruise's T.J. Mackey?
Yeah, it's one of those movies with really unpleasant people, and it sets me on edge. And yeah, I respect it. I feel like the way about most of Anderson's movies, I respect them, and I don't necessarily like them. And that's okay. Not all art is for everyone. But it is funny that this I think it's weird that this movie did predict the MRAs and incels, because I mean,
well, it didn't predict.
I would have thought it was like, I think watching it even, it's like, wow, this should have been a throwback, and yet here we are.
Yeah, he didn't predict that. That is a takeoff of an actual motivational speaker named Ross Jeffries, who is English and has this kind of men's thing. It's really gross. So,
oh yeah, I remember there were people like at the time, but it seems like it should have been a relic by now.
Oh yeah, well, unfortunately,
it's accelerating.
Yes, well, it either dies off or it grows stronger, and unfortunately, it grows stronger. So, in a movie full of unpleasant people playing unpleasant roles, what unpleasant person have you picked to play the most unpleasant role?
I went with because I think you have to have somebody that is as charismatic, and that what was cool about, or not cool, but Tom Cruise really works in the part because it's playing gay against type. And I almost went with Bradley Cooper, but I went with a Tom Cruise alumni in Val Kilmer, because he can be smarmy and unlikable, but he's also very charismatic, and I could see him. I mean, he had that Mark Twain show, so I could actually see him taking this for real around the country and telling men to respect the cock.
Oh, well, hey, settle down. We're going to call it Hitchcock here because we don't want to get a tag on our YouTube channel. But yes, known for being your Huckleberry, it is widely known that Val Kilmer, when he was in his prime, was not the most pleasant actor to work with. And you can listen to any episode that has director Adam Marcus at matineeheroes.com, and he discusses Val Kilmer and his disdain for him at length, and his love for Gary Cole. So it's one of those things where thank God for Gary Cole, otherwise Val Kilmer might have gotten killed by Adam Marcus. But he was in Tombstone, Real Genius, Top Gun, Heat, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, all movies we've done here at Matinee Heroes. So head over to matineeheroes.com and look up all these movies and Adam Marcus, and you'll be able to get all kinds of good things on Val Kilmer. For someone who's kind of a dick in real life, apparently, we did a lot of good movies.
I mean, that's the tragedy of Val Kilmer, a terrible person.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's terrible,
really
but
good actor.
After seeing his documentary, I think he's got some issues, but unfortunately, when the issues affect other people, it's very sad. So, Paul, who do you have to go up against Val Kilmer? Because this is apparently a Top Gun reunion. She's trying to put Top Gun against everything.
Who I had is I had Chris Pine.
Now, what do you think is so great about Chris Pine besides his piercing blue eyes?
So the funny thing is I'm actually not the biggest fan of Chris Pine. I love him as Captain Kirk. I think he's a great Captain Kirk. I haven't really been blown away by a lot of other kind of more straight roles that he's played, if you will. But he was in. I think he's got a lot of range. I think he does. I think the camera really likes him. So I think he's as a result he's got a charisma, and there's at times an affable nature that comes across. And like Beth said, or like Elisabeth said, regarding kind of like casting against type with Tom Cruise, if you can't really cast against type, I think you want to be able to cast someone who can really bring people in the way that you almost want to like them. And when they're saying these horrible things, you're almost maybe willing to grant them a few more excuses.
Right.
But if it was someone who was a little who was a little more hard on the eyes, if you will.
Well, we know him from the Star Trek reboot. He was great as, I can't remember his last name, but Steve in the Steve in the Wonder Woman movies. Wrinkle in Time I saw, I fell asleep halfway through. He was the great original Peter Parker in Into the Spider-Verse. And the most recent thing that he's in is on Amazon Prime, All the Old Knives with Thandie Newton. So obviously up-and-coming guy. Chris Pine, the more I see him, the more I like him. He's starting to grow on me.
Yeah, I think Paul's a huge Chris Pine fan. You use him whenever we do this between ourselves, you always use Chris Pine.
All right. This is where Friends has a problem because now she's giving all the dirt. So we got Val Kilmer versus Chris Pine, and the judges went with, of course, Val Kilmer. If someone's going to start screaming about how you have to tame the C word and you have to obey the C word, if it's coming from Val Kilmer, people believe it. So next we get to I went with John Hamm because I think John Hamm has got that smarmy look. He's that handsome guy that probably doesn't have a hard time dating, and so he's just saying things that other people want to hear, especially people who don't have stuff. So it's like, oh, that all sounds good. So I think he's just kind of playing the marketing, so to speak. Believe me, I know enough professional speakers that they don't believe a lot of what they say. As long if people eat it up, they'll say it. So next we have the great Philip Baker Hall playing the not-so-great game show host, Jimmy Gator. Paul, who do you have playing the game show host that might have done some horrible things?
I went real easy with it. I went with Richard Dawson, who was the show host. Before that, he was on Hogan's Heroes. But he was the first host for Family Feud, and of course, he was also in. I shouldn't say, of course, it's an old movie now, but he played a character called Richard Killian in The Running Man, where again he played a game show host.
Absolutely.
And talking about this, I mean, he honestly had that on the Family Feud, and he had it in The Running Man. And I never really watched Hogan's Heroes, so I can't speak to that. But that was one where I was just like, let's go for someone who's kind of already got that background.
Yeah, absolutely. He loved kissing contestants, all of them. I mean, if anybody has HPV, it's this guy. This guy has herpes simplex B for sure. But he definitely was in Family Feud, The Running Man, The Longest Day, and The Munsters Go Home. He really wasn't in a lot of films. He was kind of a personality, and you saw him a lot on The Match Game. So Family Feud is what made him. And The Match Game also, he made like 2,500 appearances on The Match Game or something like that. So, Elisabeth, you've got some heavy competition. He went right for the jugular with Richard Dawson.
I know. I went with an Oscar winner who I think is kind of a bit of a cheat because I think he's played this kind of character before. But I went with Tom Wilkinson, who has that very, like, kind, affable, draws you in, could easily be like, the guy that's on your TV screens and is your game show host every Sunday night or whatever, but could also be a child molester.
Yeah. So Tom Wilkinson, known for playing a lot of broken men, as we saw in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. He played Carmen Falcone with that horrible accent. He was in Michael Clayton, Valkyrie, Selma. Once again, second time in a row, all movies we've done here at Matinee Heroes. I would give you bonus points for that, but you can't. So go to matineeheroes.com, and once again, another 5 phenomenal movies by a phenomenal actor. So we have Richard Dawson, Tom Wilkinson. The judges decided go for the real deal because he can act, so he can play that guy. So 1-1. That's tied, and we move on to probably the most. Oh, I went with James Brolin. I keep forgetting that. I went with James Brolin because I think he has that charm and charisma of a game show host, but he's got that creep factor of something. He might have been done something wrong. Sorry, James, but it's true. Josh has that same kind of feel to him. All right. Now we have hospice nurse, and the most sensitive Philip Seymour Hoffman on screen I've ever seen, playing Phil Parma. Elisabeth, who do you have playing the nurse that takes care of and cries a lot?
I tried to go go with somebody a little more kind of up and coming, but I went with Coleman Domingo, who I think has a real warmth and kindness to him in a lot of things that he plays. And he's kind of gone into this, he's got a lot of horror movie credits and stuff, but he's got a lot of warmth, and for some reason he reminds me of a male nurse.
I could actually see that. You put some scrubs on him, and he would definitely, and it actually kind of fits the demographic of a nurse nowadays, are mostly male. I mean, not mostly male, but there's a good chunk of them are male, African Americans. I think he's a great guy. He lives here in the Los Angeles Irvine area and teaches at USC Irvine. It's one of the big things that he does. So he's a very sweet guy who plays very sometimes intimidating people, but also he can play sweet people too. So let's be honest, he's not just a one-trick pony. So, Paul, we've got to go up against Coleman Domingo. Who do you got to play the nurse?
I went with another actor that was kind of coming up around the same time as Philip Seymour Hoffman was at this time, and was another kind of indie darling for a little bit. I went with Sam Rockwell because I could see him in Scrubs, and he's got a lot of range. He can display a softness. He hasn't done it in a lot of roles, but he has done it occasionally. And so it was just one of those things where he was probably the first one I cast, honestly. Sam Rockwell. I just saw Sam Rockwell in Scrubs, and I was like, there we go.
Oh, he can definitely play the sensitive side, but he's known as a dancing fool because he always tries to sneak in a dance step or two in every movie he does. He was fantastic as Guy, the red-shirted ensign in Galaxy Quest. He was in The Green Mile, where he's a spitting, foaming, crazy person. Justin Hammer in Iron Man 2, was in the reboot of Poltergeist, and did a hell of a George W. Bush impression in Vice. So we have Coleman Domingo, Sam Rockwell. The judges fought this one over, and Coleman Domingo gets the point.
Oh,
and
dang.
Elisabeth takes the lead 2-1.
I thought I had this one lost.
You think every single time you have the
I know, but Sam Rockwell's a really good pick.
Coleman Domingo apparently is a better pick. So
okay.
So next, I went with Walton Goggins, who, like Sam Rockwell, so we were at least thinking in the same line, Paul. Like Sam Rockwell, can be that soft, sensitive side. If you've seen the Unicorn, the television show that he did on CBS as a widowed father dating, very sweet and nice guy, charming AF, as the kids say. So I could see him in Scrubs and being a caring person as well. Well, next is former child celebrity and quiz kid Donnie Smith, played by the always magnificently incapable William H. Macy, who thinks getting braces will change his life. And ironically, something with his mouth will. So, Paul, who do you have playing the former child celebrity quiz kid who now is trying to find his former glory?
Kind of with Richard Dawson. Again, I kind of turned into the skid on this one and just said, find someone who has had a similar real life. So I went with Jason Bateman. Obviously Jason Bateman was a child star on, what was it, like Silver Spoons. He guest starred Valerie. Then he kind of went away for a while after Teen Wolf 2. I'm not saying he needed to. And then, he came back obviously big time with Arrested Development. So I thought he was someone who could really kind of mine his own life for that kind of like experience and bringing that to that type of a character.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very deadpan everyman. So that's why he's in so much stuff. He's everywhere, but he also plays that guy who is the calming or the most sensible in the room while the world is going crazy. I mean, if you can work with Will Arnett, you have to be somewhat sane and steady. Obviously, Teen Wolf 2, he was in Dodgeball, an underdog story, Juno, Up in the Air, Horrible Bosses. Yeah, absolutely. Jason Bateman really fits the bill. Elisabeth, who do you have to go up against child star Jason Bateman?
I was not fond of, I like my pick in the sense of I like his work. This was hard. This one was the hardest one, I think, too. And I feel like mine even ended up being a cheap shot, even though I didn't mean it to, but I went with Steve Buscemi, and it was not because of his teeth. It just was like, he could play like such like kind of sweet down in the mouth. Oh God, that's like another pun I didn't mean. But
yeah, you're the Steve Buscemi fan club president over here.
I wanted somebody who wasn't super attractive, who was looking at this handsome bartender and being like, if I just could fix my teeth, you would be my man. That, for some reason, that was Steve Buscemi to me.
All right. Well, he was in Miller's Crossing, Fargo, Con Air. He was Donnie, constantly being yelled at by John Goodman in The Big Lebowski. He was a creep at Con Air, so he kind of fits some of the characters in this movie. Armageddon, which we did earlier this season. But yes, he's definitely known for connecting with his fellow kids. So we have Jason Bateman, Steve Buscemi. The judges decided Jason Bateman gets... So Paul gets the point and ties it up. I also like Jason Bateman because when I was thinking of celebrity kids who haven't crashed and burned and are actually quite successful, he was the top of my list. I basically Googled celebrity actors, and when I saw him on my list, I'm like, yeah, because he's still working. He's still really good at what he does. So that means Paul gets an extra point. So
dang.
You went from 1 down to 1 up. And now we move on. So, Elisabeth, you have some catching up to do now all of a sudden. Next, we get to...
I'm really starting to sweat.
Next, we get to Julianne Moore playing Gold Digger turned True Love, Linda Partridge. And so we will start with Elisabeth. Elisabeth, who do you have playing... She wanted the money. She loved them for the money. Oh, that's me. You don't need to see me. Good God. She loved him for the money. She wanted the money. And then she realized, you know what? This Jason Robards guy's a nice guy. Earl, he ain't so bad. I'm going to stick by him, and I'm going to have myself exercised from the will. So who do you have playing the Gold Digger?
I went with, I think like probably the person who gets a lot of Julianne Moore's rejected scripts. I went with Catherine Keener, kind of an indie darling who can have that sort of edgy, manic hysterical Karen energy, but that you still kind of like. And you could believe would have a turnaround on her elderly rich husband.
Oh, absolutely. She is a rock solid go-to. If you can't get Julianne Moore, I don't want to call her a C-lister, because she's definitely not a C-lister. She's a B-lister. If you can't get the super expensive person for the role and you want a rock solid actress who can do anything you want them to do, Catherine Keener can do it all. Out of Sight, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, she was in Capote, being John Malkovich, Get Out, and most recently they had her in that de-aging makeup in The Adam Project on Netflix with Ryan Reynolds. It was really odd to see her in that, because they did a really bad job on the CGI. Well, enough about bad CGI. We'll go to real-life iPhone user Paul Hitchcock. Paul, who do you have to go up against Catherine Keener and replace the ever-lovable Julianne Moore?
Yeah, I went with Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer is an actress I just really like, and she wasn't doing a lot around this time in '99. I think she did What Lies Beneath. I think that came out in 2000 or 2001, but kind of like took a step back at one point during this time. And I think she's just a phenomenal actress. And this type of role, I felt really kind of swerved into the lane of similar to what she played in Scarface with Pacino.
Yeah. So we all know her as the Catwoman from Batman Returns, in Scarface, Lady Hawk. She was the fabulous part of the Baker Boys. And of course, the Dangerous Minds, where she always sits with a chair, facing the wrong direction to talk to the kids, to rap with the students. Well, we've got Catherine Keener against Michelle Pfeiffer, two rock-solid ladies. The judges decided to go with Michelle Pfeiffer. And Paul, you go up 2 points. I went with Margot Robbie because I really went in with she's going to be young and beautiful, and that's really going to irritate people even more. I mean, Julianne Moore is beautiful. She's just not as young as Margot Robbie, so she's kind of a middle-aged. In this point, she's middle-aged beautiful. And I think if you had a really young Margot Robbie, it would really irritate people. And that's what this movie really is, right, Elisabeth? It's all about irritating each other.
It is. It gives me major anxiety.
So, Elisabeth, next we have... Oh, no, sorry, it's not Elisabeth. It is Paul's next. So next is the lovable but inept cop that is the great and wonderful Paul C. Reilly, playing Jim Curring, who loses his gun, falls in love with a drug addict, and doesn't quite know what he's doing. So who do you have playing the lovable cop?
I kind of just cast off of the curly hair, and I went with Seth Rogen.
Ah, Seth Rogen, yes, known for his off-putting laugh. I've been having a cough for the last month, so if I do his laugh, it'll make me in a coughing fit. But man, that's the one thing I do not want to do, is crave my approval by getting Seth Rogen to laugh at me. He was in Anchorman, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Superbad, and of course, we all make mistakes, The Green Hornet. Elisabeth, who do you have playing the lovable cop?
This was another hard one because you don't want to go like super handsome with it, and you don't want to go, I don't know, super dorky with it either. And I went, and I think I've used him before, so it felt like a cop out, but I went with Shea Wiggum. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Officer Wiggum? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea, but he could do,
hey, Ralph.
he just does lovable inept really well. He was sort of the lovable inept brother on Boardwalk Empire, which is where I first noticed him. I'm sure probably most people did. But he's just, and it's like he looks like an average dopey kind of cop. Almost went with Will Ferrell, but I went with him instead.
Well, he's definitely, see, I don't get the same vibe from him that you do. I get the Irish tough guy, because every time I see him, he's usually upset. He's not happy. Boardwalk Empire, he was mad in every scene in Boardwalk Empire. So he was always, and I had this, you know how hard it was for me to find a picture of him smiling? So he was in The Wolf of Wall Street. Here he is in Kong Skull Island. He was a detective in Joker. Apparently, he's in the Fast and Furious movies. He's been in a couple of those, more than one. And, of course, again, he was in Boardwalk Empire.
Well, Dad was thinking of him in Silver Linings Playbook specifically, where he's like, gosh, everything's going so great for me, and it's terrible for you. And he's just, like, even inept at being, like, a nice brother.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we've got Seth Rogen. We've got Shea Wiggum. Well, here's what we got to do. And we've got Paul gives with Seth Rogen, so he's up by 3. Now, Elisabeth, there is only 3 points left on the board. So what's got to happen right now is I have to have had picked Shea Wiggum.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
And the problem is we just discussed why I wouldn't pick Shea Wiggum because I went with Ed Helms. And so that means, Paul, you have won tonight's game, and congratulations. But before we get to the final thought, I want to remind everybody that we need subscribers over at the YouTube channel. Please go over there if you can. I certainly would appreciate it. Also, we have shirts. We have shirts. Go to matineeheroes.com/store. We would certainly appreciate you buying a couple cast-off shirts, but we've got a bunch of Manatee Hero shirts that you would love to see you. So, before we leave tonight, Paul, you are today's winner, and that means you have the final thought. So what final thought are you going to leave the entire internet with?
I have nothing prepared. I really don't. If we got a new Thor movie coming out in a couple of months, and this sounds like I'm shilling for Marvel Studios for some reason, and
they need all the help they can get.
If anyone's really interested in the idea of a female Thor, I recommend they check out Jason Aaron's Thor run. It's available collected in a few different versions, and he's the one who created Thor, or female Thor.
Jane Foster, Lady Thor.
Jane Foster Thor, yeah. And so if anyone's seeing that trailer and they're like, oh man, what's this about? Go check out Jason Aaron's Thor. You won't be disappointed in any way whatsoever. He had a phenomenal, like a 5 to 6 year run on the book. So it's just 100% recommended.
Well, perfect. There you go. Our final thought is check out these comics for Lady Thor's first appearance and where she comes from. A great run. We appreciate it. Don't worry. The cat is just congratulating you. It's a victory kiss. It's like they thought it was the Indianapolis 500 and you have milk poured over you, but that doesn't happen on this particular show.
He just wants to be my very own yellow jersey, and I respect it.
Well, next week we are taking off for Memorial Weekend, but that doesn't mean we have a show. We won't have a show. We will have a brand new show as we go back in time. That's right. We are going back to winter of 2021 when we have Rob Irvin and his co-host Alex Barnhill of the Clubhouse Podcast for Who Needs Sleep telethon that we did in December, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. So we did this one the same day we did LA Comic-Con. So there was a day in December 4th, I believe, we did 3 cast-offs live. It was crazy. It was very bizarre and very busy. But once again, a great charity, whoneedsleep.org. So check that out. There's going to be another one coming up this December. And if you want to be on the show, you don't have to know Elisabeth. You can easily just head over to matineeheroes.com/cast-off/application or send me an email at mhcastoff@gmail.com. Of course, you can follow us on the Cast-Off Show on Twitter, Matinee Heroes on the Facebook groups, matineeheroes.com/castoff. That gets you the links to the video feed, including twitch.tv/matineeheroes. And special thanks to not Elisabeth Rappe and Rob Irvin. I didn't change this, so she didn't cheat. If she did, she really did a poor job. I want to thank Heather Price, my lovely wife, who helped out because this is her favorite movie, and Rob Irvin for judging. So if you have any questions or problems with the judging tonight, talk to them. Leave me out of it. So on behalf of Elisabeth Rappe and today's winner, Paul Hitchcock, my name is Craig Price. Thank you so very much for watching the Cast-Off. We will see you next week.